Jai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. This morning we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 18, Text 50. Prayasa sadavo loke pared bandveshu yojita na vyatanti narishyanti yata atma gunasraya prayasa generally sadava saints loke in this world parai by others dvanveshu in duality yojita being engaged na never yatanti distressed na no rishyanti takes pleasure yata because atma self aguna asraya transcendental. Translation: generally the transcendentalists, even though engaged by others in the dualities of the material world, are not distressed, nor do they take pleasure in worldly things, for they are transcendentally engaged. Translation, please repeat. Generally the transcendentalists, even though engaged by others in the dualities of the material world, are not distressed, nor do they take pleasure in worldly things, for they are transcendently engaged. Purport: the transcendentalists are the empiric philosophers, the mystics and the devotees of the Lord. Empiric philosophers aim at the perfection of merging into the being of the Absolute. Mystics aim at perceiving the all-pervading Supersoul, and the devotees of the Lord are engaged in the transcendent loving service of the personality of Godhead. Since Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan are different phases of the same transcendence, all these transcendentalists are beyond the three modes of material nature. Material distresses and happiness are products of the three modes, and therefore the causes of such material distress and happiness have nothing to do with the transcendentalists. The king was a devotee and the rishi was a mystic. Therefore both of them were unattached to the accidental incident created by the Supreme Will. The playful child was an instrument in fulfilling the Lord's will. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the first canto, 18th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Maharaj Parikshit Cursed by a Brahmana Boy. So here we're continuing to hear from Samika Rishi. He is making many statements about the position of kings in general, and specifically Maharaj Parikshit, and what the consequences would be if someone like the king and Maharaj Parikshit were removed from the scene. Here, of course, there was a curse pronounced on Maharaj Parikshit to die by the snake bite. And so he makes many statements, and I mentioned last week that we see the difference between the statements of Sringi, his son, and Samika Rishi, in that there's so much more understanding, so much more knowledge, maturity, realization, understanding. All these things are there with Samika, as opposed to Sringi, who was very quick to come to judgment, rush to judgment, and then come to a conclusion that was not at all a proper conclusion. Here Samika Rishi is continuing on, and he's saying that in the previous verse, the sage regretted the sins of his own son, and as I said, he previously stated what would be the consequence, what the position of the king, and all this, and then he goes and he gives general comments and statements, and then he gives specific in regard to Maharaj Parikshit. Now he's coming back to more a generalized statement, as he's further explaining for our benefit what is the not only with the position of transcendentalists, but what is the proper understanding of this incident? And because he says generally the transcendentalists, even though engaged by others in dualism material, are not distressed. So in other words, he's indicating there's something else going on here, because generally the transcendentalists are not distressed, but we see that Maharaj Parikshit came and he wasn't received, and there was some expression of being distressed and upset. So here Samika is saying generally they're not like that, and generally meaning, and this is explained in the verse and Prabhupada in the purport, generally meaning not that especially very high level transcendentalists, not that they make mistakes. Generally they're okay, but every now and again they make a mistake. No, the proper understanding is generally they're not, and if there's something happens that is contrary to that, there's some other forces at play here. Understand there's a little bit of a subtle difference, because here he talks about they do not take pleasure in worldly things, for they are transcendently engaged. So Samika is talking about not so much beginners on the path, those who are casual practitioners. He's talking about the topmost levels of transcendentalists, and Prabhupada confirms that in his purport. The topmost level. Already it was stated that Maharaj Parikshit, not only the king, the emperor, he was a Mahabhagavat. They're all different levels of devotees, and Mahabhagavat is considered to be the topmost. Jiva Goswami actually goes on to elaborate. He says actually there's all different levels of Mahabhagavats also. First class, second class, third class. He actually says like that. Or even so, there's all different levels. But definitely Maharaj Parikshit is Mahabhagavat. And Prabhupada actually says, and Samika Rishi, he was also very high level. He had the realization. He was in meditation. Now, these are serious devotees. Here Prabhupada says the transcendentalists of three kinds. Samika says that generally the transcendentalists, and then Prabhupada said, well, transcendentalists are empiric philosophers, mystics, devotees of the Lord. Those who are pursuing the path of Brahman realization, those who are pursuing the path of meditation and the Lord within, the Paramatma feature, and then of course the devotees. And so all these those who are actually transcendentalists, and on a high level of being transcendental, whatever type of transcendental, but they are considered transcendentals. And Prabhupada explains it here. He says that since Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan are different phases of the same transcendence, all these transcendentalists are beyond the three modes of material nature. So we have all aspects of that supreme Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. So it's a different levels of realization of that same supreme absolute truth. Just like Prabhupada would give the example of the train. There were people who they never had the train come to their village. There was the train station built, and they were expecting the first train. They didn't know what a train was, and so they knew the train was coming at a certain time, and it was coming, and then they were looking, and then some of them could see, the train's coming. They saw the light of the train, so they hurriedly and they told their friends, the train, we saw the train, it's a light. Others stayed on a little bit longer. They saw the train came in, and there were, not only was there the light, there were carriages and so on and so forth. And then others stayed on and understood, there's the light, there's the carriages, and there's people inside here. So those who understood the light and the carriages and the people had a more fuller understanding. Where those who just understood the train as a light had a partial. But nevertheless, it's all part of the train. And so Prabhupada makes a point of it here, that they're all considered transcendentalists. Just like Lord Rishabdev, he instructed his sons, Tapo Divyam Putrakena Sudyatyasmat Brahma Sokyam Tvanantam. Nayam deho daha kastan him bujjam. What's that word? Nayam deho daha kastan him bujjam ye. Tapo divyam putrikana. Yeah. So he said, don't engage in the sense gratification of the world, which is available just even for the hogs and the dogs and the animals. Engage yourself in transcendental Brahma Sokyam. That is eternal. And then in the next verse, Mahat Sevam Varamahu Vimuktistamo Yoshirab Shangi Shangam. He said, Mahat Sevam, he says that the transcendentalists are those who, like Prabhupada explains here, they are those who are fully engaged, understanding the position of that transcendence, and it can be understood in. But nevertheless, they're all considered transcendentalists. They are Mahatmas, actually. This is, different phases of the three. So they are, because they're very seriously, and they are on the high levels of transcendence, whatever their position is. They are beyond the dualities of the material world. They are fully engaged. They are very serious. Just like we've been reading in Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Lord Chaitanya went to Varanasi and he met with the Prakasananda and all his followers. They were very serious Vedantists who were aspiring to have the Brahman realization, but they're very serious and a lot of study, a lot of tapasya. So they're fully engaged in that. Fully engaged in. They're like Samika. Samika Rishi is fully engaged in his meditation, in the mystic yogi, by the meditation, by the different yoga, and so meditating on the Lord within the heart. Very seriously. And of course the devotees, very seriously engaged in serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I remember one time Prabhupada in Melbourne, he said that he was talking about the yoga, and the best of the yogis are actually the devotees, and he pointed to two of our ladies who were making garlands. He said, just like these devotees here, I regard them, they are the best of the yogis. They are the best of the yogis, because one is making the garland for Radha, the other is making the garland for Krishna, and they are not thinking other things, he said. They are not thinking other things. So one is just thinking Radha, and another is thinking Krishna, I'm making for Krishna. So they are even the best of the yogis. So there's yoga and then the best of the yogis. Yoginam api savishami, then he quoted that verse. So the devotees are fully engaged, very seriously, any level of these transcendentalists, because they're so seriously engaged full time, there's no time for other things. As Prabhupada says here. Where does he say that? They're unattached, the playful, no. They have not the happiness and distress of the material world. The transcendentalists have nothing to do with that. They are fully engaged in their activity. So this is one point that's very strongly emphasized here. They all aim at realizing the same absolute truth. So Samika was obviously a very, very advanced mystic yogi, and he was actually a devotee. He was a yogi who was actually also a devotee. He was because he prays to God. There are some who of course, those who are trying to realize Brahman, they accept the absolute as that effulgence, that Brahman. And there are the mystic yogis. They're meditating on the Lord within, and they understand that the Lord within is a person. And so we see here when Samika, he makes a prayer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he was so deeply in meditation that when Parikshit came in, he didn't realize Parikshit Maharaj was there. So there are others who follow Patanjali and the different yoga systems. They meditate within, and they are meditating within. Maybe they're on meditating within to realize the form of God within. But some of them make the mistake that, and Prabhupada actually mentions this in a few places, some of them make the mistake of thinking they are that Paramatma. Of course, we know that there's Paramatma and then there's Atma within the region of the heart of every individual. But those who perhaps take it up, they're thinking, I am that I am that super soul. So that is a great mistake. Samika Rishi didn't make that mistake. He understood by his meditation that there is the Supreme Personality of God. So both of them, Parikshit Maharaj, Mahabhagavat, Samiki, very, very advanced. Others are following Brahman. They are fully, so because they are fully engaged, they are definitely transcendent. They are beyond the dualities of the material world. They are actually, they don't experience material distress and happiness as other conditioned souls experience it. The conditioned souls, because they're not so engaged, because they're conditioned, they have to experience that. They're not on that same. Although it may seem that the transcendentalists, and this is another point that Samika makes here, that generally the transcendent, even though engaged by others in the dualities of the material world, are not distressed. So it may seem that the transcendentalists have taken up certain positions in the world, and for someone who is not advanced in spiritual life, they may look at that, and they may look at materialists and see there's no difference. This one's eating, that one's eating, that one's living in a house, the other one's living in a house, that one has a family, this one has a family, this one goes to work, that one goes to work. What's the difference? They're the same. So externally, because these people are not haven't got the understanding of what is a transcendentalist and what is transcendence, they just see that as the same. So unfortunately, that is an unfortunate position, because there's a gulf of difference. Even though the transcendental may be doing similar things to the materialist, there's a gulf. The goal is different, the consciousness is different, and one is doing for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord without attachment for themselves, whereas a materialist is far different from that. So therefore, because the materialist has, the goal is for his own sense gratification, and he has so many attachments, therefore he has to experience the dualities of the material world, the happiness and the distress of the material world. And here Prabhupada explains that this is all caused by the effect of the modes of material nature. Now we know that, as devotees we know, of course, Maya Dakshena Prakriti Sujite Sachara. etuna nenakonda jagat viparivata, that the material world is a creation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Materialists may not accept that, but devotees accept that it is coming, the creation is coming from God. So all this material energy is coming from, and he infuses his material energy with the three modes. Material distress and happiness are products of the three modes, Prabhupada says. He infuses the material energy with the qualities of the modes of nature, and this and all the happiness and the distress is just a byproduct of the interaction of the modes of material nature. Now, Prabhupada actually explains that the creation is there, infused with the modes of material nature by the Supreme Personality of God and through the energy. And it's just the three modes of material nature that is actually creating all these different varieties that we see in the world. And he explains in different places. He says, just like an artist knows there are three primary colours: red, blue, and red, blue, and yellow. Yeah, yellow. What is it? Red, yellow, red, and blue. Right? These are the three primary colours. And then Prabhupada explains like that. Any artist, red means mode of passion, yellow means mode of goodness, and blue means mode of ignorance. Right? So then when you mix those primary colours, then you get so many other different colours. And Prabhupada explains it's just like the modes of nature. He says 3 by 3 gives you 9, and 9 by 9 gives you 81. So there's 81 different varieties, and of course they're all different shades. And you add the original 3 is 84. Right, so just like colours are like that, and so the creation is like that. And of the original three modes of nature, that comes from the creation of the Supreme Personality of God. So that happens in so many different ways. The Brahma is in charge of the Rajagun, and Shiva is a Tamagun, and Lord Vishnu in charge of the Sattva-guna, and so all the interactions, and then we have all the varieties, and then we are part of it, and then we interact with the other part of it, and then we get, and it's and this is all to fulfill our desires to be separate from Krishna and enjoy this material world in a certain way. But when we do that, and we don't understand the cause of it, then we experience that we go into dualities. Everything is subjective. I enjoy like that. What is good for one person is not good for another person. Someone will like a sweet rice, another person won't like sweet rice, so on and so forth. So it's all very subjective, and therefore one experiences relativity, and one experiences happiness and distress. So so Prabhupada explains it in his purport like this: the transcendentalist, the stress is caused by the interaction of the modes of material nature under this material energy coming from Krishna, but the transcendentalists aren't engaged in that. They might be seen to be engaged like that. As I said earlier, they're doing the same activities as other people are doing, but they're not actually. The goal and the desire, the attachment, everything is not the same. So one is caught up in all that interaction, and the other one is separate from. So this is another point that Prabhupada makes here. Both of them were unattached to the accidental incident created by the Supreme Will. The playful child was an instrument in fulfilling the Lord's will. We see here that Samika, in giving this type of explanation, and also everyone was an instrument here. And this instrument is very, interesting word. The proper use is just like in Bhagavad Gita, we find this nimitta matra. When Arjuna was confused on the battle of Kurukshetra, and then Krishna instructed him in so many ways. Arjuna wanted to see the opulences of the Lord, and the Lord showed him his Vishvarup, his universal form, and Arjuna was very amazed to see that, and he was very scared also. And all this was to bring Arjuna to the point of being an instrument, because when Arjuna says that, who are you? Who are you actually? Then Krishna comes to the point. He could have said so many things, but Krishna answers him, Kalosmi lokachayakrit prabhu. He said, time I am, destroyer of all men. And he said that, and this is in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. The great destroyer, time I am. That's it. Kalosmi lokachayakrit prabhu lokan samaitam. A very famous verse. Time I am, destroyer of the world. I have come here to destroy all people, with the exception of you. All the soldiers here on both sides will be slain. So, Arjuna, who are you? And he asked this previously. I want to know about you. Who are? I do not know what your mission is. He says this. I do not know what your mission is. What is a mission? And then Krishna explained very specifically, especially in regard to the situation that was going on. Time I am, the destroyer of all men. Destroyer of all worlds here, the destroyer of all worlds. And so he became very specific. And in the next verse, Nimitta matram bhava savya sachin. He refers to Arjuna as Savya Sachin. I mean, he's a great archer. He's a great archer. And he's a warrior. And he wanted to, he says, just become my instrument. I have my plan here. What is your mission? Time I am, the destroyer of the world. Everyone will be killed. And you are a warrior. He immediately emphasized on that point. You are Savya Sachin. And my plan is time. Everyone will be killed here, exception of you. So therefore, this is going to come to pass. So therefore, nimitta matram, become my instrument. Become my instrument, conquer your enemies and enjoy a flourishing kingdom. It says like that. Do not be disturbed. Simply do the fighting. This is my plan. So all this Samika was generally the transcendentalists. They don't, experience happiness, distress, just like the conditioned souls. But and this is not going on because they're not so high transcendentalists. They made a mistake. An occasional mistake there. No, they're very high, especially Maharaj Parikshit. And so this was going on under the plan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the whole crux of his statement here. It's going on under the plan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Prabhupada says he says that the child was an instrument, but everyone was an instrument. Samika Rishi was an instrument. The way he's describing very nicely, he's an instrument. Parikshit was an instrument. So God has his plan. We like to think we're controllers and everything like that, but there are many things going on out of our control. Whose control are they under? Of course, the devotees accept the transcendental, under the Supreme Absolute Truth, under Krishna. So Krishna has his plan. Sometimes we find that Krishna adopts the plan or the desires of his devotee. Krishna has a great plan, and sometimes the devotee has a plan, a desire, and Krishna adopts that plan. And so the devotee becomes an instrument in that, and Krishna may make arrangement to bring other people in fulfilling his devotee's plan. Just like I remember the story from Gita Mahatmya. There's one story about one Brahmana who was named Jada, but he wasn't a very good Brahmana. He gave up his Brahminical qualities and activities and just became a real kind of, he became a businessman, just making money, and very mean and cruel and cheating and meat eating and drunkard. He went on a business trip, and in the northern part of India, and he did very well. And he came back, and he had some money with him, and he decided, and he was kind of walking actually, and he took rest under a tree. But unbeknownst to him, he was being followed by some dacoits. He'd been followed by some dacoits, and they waited till he took rest, and they came and they took the money and they actually killed him. They killed him. And so meanwhile his son, who was actually a devotee, he was a good Brahmana and a devotee Brahmana, he was waiting for his father to come back. He didn't come back. He decided to go out and search for him, and he was asking around. And he asked one person, said, "Oh, there was an incident here where a man was killed under the tree. Maybe that was your father, And so he went there, and he kind of concluded by talking to this one and that one, the other one, that it actually was his father. So he sat under the tree, and he used to recite Bhagavad Gita all the time and worship the Lord. He had back in his village, he had a deity of the Lord. So he was reciting, and then when he finished reciting one chapter from the Gita, he heard a noise, and in the sky he saw his father there, glowing, and he recognized him. He appeared in a form that he recognized him, and he said, "My father, I was praying for you because I heard that you were killed, but now I see you're kind of in a liberated form." And and the father said, "Yes, thank you. By your recitation and by your devotional activity, I've been blessed and benefited so much so, just by your purity, I've attained liberation. And now, by your mercy and by the mercy of God, even though I was very sinful, And then the son said, "Is there anything more I can do?" Well, and the father, "No, I'm very happy. I'm going back home, back to God." So then, but he said, "But if you want to do something else, there are my brother was also." he said, "My brother was also really bad, and you remember your uncle, he passed away. He was really bad, Maybe you can do some prayers for him, and there were other members of our family that were also really bad. Do some prayers." And then so the son, agreed. So when he went back home, he had his deity, he was worshipping, that he was making prayers, and he was reciting. He actually, Father Tom, keep reciting his Bhagavad Gita. So he was reciting the Bhagavad Gita like that, and he decided that, well, why only the brother, only his uncle, and his own ancestors? I'll pray for all. He was actually a very high devotee. So I'll pray for all those sinful entities who suffering, with the Yamaraj now getting some punishment. So he prayed like that. So Lord Vishnu in the Vaikuntha was just smiling, and Lakshmi Devi said that, "Why are you smiling?" And he said, "I've just been observing the activities of one of my devotees, and he's doing the prayer to liberate all the souls of the world. So I'm very pleased with him, and I'm going to fulfill his desire." all the souls who were with Yamaraj. So he sent some Vishnu Dutas to see Yamaraj. And he sent some Vishnu Dutas to see Yamaraj, and when Yamaraj saw the Vishnu Dutas, he immediately knew who they were. He's a great exalted devotee himself, and he paid his obeisances, and he asked about the Supreme Lord Vishnu, and he felt very blessed, and how can I serve you? And they said, we've got a message from Lord Vishnu. He wants you to release all the souls you have here that are here ready for punishment. He wants you to release them. So, oh yes, well, if Lord Vishnu, if he wants like that, so they got absolved from any of the reactions that they were going to get, and they got into they got into the different levels of they got all different types of rewards, So, but he said that one thing, I've done all that now, but can I accompany you? I want to take darshan of Lord Vishnu. So and he went with the Vishnu Dutas in the Vimana, the Vaikuntha Vimana, and he went and he paid his obeisances, and he was crying to see Lord Vishnu. He was granted the darshan of Lord Vishnu. He's crying, and he made many prayers to him, and the Lord Vishnu greeted him, and then he said, "My dear Lord, now I've released all the souls. From there, then I have no service. What service can I do now?" So Lord Vishnu said, "Yes, thank you very much. You have done this service for me. You have been my instrument in fulfilling the desires of my devotee." And he said, "Don't worry about your service." He said, "Many others will come there in the future. So go back and continue on in your service." So that was an instance of the Lord adopting the desire of his devotee, and then making a grand plan. And then Yamaraj being the instrument in that. And the devotee, of course, the son was also the instrument. So sometimes, the Lord has his plan. It behooves us to understand what is the plan of the service. And of course, sometimes it's not so easily understandable. And very great devotees sometimes have difficulty, just like we read about Lord Brahma had difficulty when Krishna appeared. But nevertheless, there is the plan of the Lord. We can understand a little bit from Shastra. We can inquire from very advanced Vaishnavas about what the plan of the Lord is and all that. How can I cooperate with that? So the devotees are cooperating. They're being instrumental in the plan of the Lord, whereas the materialists are trying to rebel. So that is the difference. But the transcendentalists, Samika, and even those who are following the Brahman and the devotees, they are not under the dualities. They are all transcendent. So all this is the plan of the Supreme Personality of God, and everyone here was the instrument of the Lord, and therefore we end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the first canto, 18th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Maharaj Parikshit, cursed by a Brahmana boy, and the next one is the appearance of Sukadeva Goswami. All right, so we got time for maybe one or two quick questions. Yeah, yes. Go.
You mentioned about being an instrument. What's the mindset of someone who is being
What's the
mindset, the mentality of someone who is being an instrument of the Lord? Because I remember I was listening to one class a few years ago by Radhanath Swami, and then he says, of course, a devotee shouldn't think that he is an agent or an instrument in a devotee's karmic reaction. So, can you...
someone's karmic reaction a couple of years ago, you said that?
A few years ago, Radhanath Swami said, of course, he was talking
Who said?
Radhanath Swami. He gave a class and he mentioned that, of course, devotees shouldn't think that they are being an instrument or an agent in another devotee's karmic reaction. So, what is the proper mentality of being an instrument?
Well, it could be. Well, I mean, if someone is actually a devotee, they don't get the karmic reaction as such. That's one thing. They don't get karma reactions just like the materialists get karma. They may get a sort of transcendental karma that's given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because that when someone becomes a devotee, Krishna accepts them into his direct family, and especially on the request of the spiritual master. They become therefore it is said all the karma is cleansed. And I think I was explaining that on another class. By habits we keep doing things and so on and so forth. And sometimes Krishna sees that, if a devotee is making offences or something like that, he gives some sort of reaction. But it's not the same as the karma of the materialists. So therefore, yes, the devotee doesn't contribute to the well, I don't know if you could even call it karma of a devotee. The devotee doesn't get the karma or the reaction. But if a devotee gets a reaction, another devotee is not thinking to be a contributing personality to that. Anyone who's actually an advanced devotee, wants to avoid creating a situation where, that something this devotee can and create a reaction for themselves. So, but it may be that the Supreme Personality of Godhead sees what has happened with that other devotee, that one other devotee made offense to this other one, and then gives a reaction to this one. So that devotee, the one who's had the offence, he shouldn't think, yes, well, I contributed and therefore he's getting an offence. So I don't know if that's probably what the Maharaj was referring to, that no serious advanced devotee likes to think that they contributed and takes pleasure in another devotee getting reaction for offences. They're very sad about that. Just like I gave the story the other week about Haridas Thakur, where Gopal Chakravarti made that offence, and then he got the reaction. He got the leprosy, and then when Haridas Thakur heard about it, he was very sorry, and he was very sorry with the whole situation, and therefore he left. And then when it happened, he was very sorry about that. He knew why it happened, but he was very sorry about it. So no one should take pleasure in that. It's very sad, but unfortunately these things do happen from time. We should understand it, and they happen and why they happen, and therefore try to avoid all that. But being instrumental, so we shouldn't see it like that, but being instrumental in the plan. What is the greater plan? In Krishna consciousness and that, and cooperate with that, being instrumental. Just like this is Lord Chaitanya Sankirtan movement. We are devotees. We're engaging in Sankirtan. So we're being instrumental, and the devotee takes great pleasure and pride in being the instrument of the Supreme Personality. It's a great mercy. It's a great mercy to be able to do that, to come in the plan. Generally the materialists who are puffed up, they don't like to think that they are instrument of anybody else. They like to make their own. They like to be the controllers, not the instruments of it. But actually, in the world, there's so many have to work in a team. There is a greater plan. We have to work in cooperation. Even materialists, although they don't like to admit it, maybe, but they have to work in a team, and they have to be instrumental. Whether it's in medicine, like in the surgery, when you're having surgery, the surgeon's there, but there's a whole team of them in there. There's a whole team of them in there, and they're all working together, instrumental in accomplishing what the goal of the surgery is. So therefore, and the more they instrumental, more cooperative, the more the success is. So even materially that is the case, where the consciousness is not so in the front there, but a devotee is very much likes to be the instrument of the Supreme. And here when I read from Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is telling Arjuna, just nimitta matram. This is my plan. I am time. Obviously, no one can go against time. And Krishna wanted to make that very clear. Kalosmi lokachakra. I am the time. Who are you? I am time. So if he's establishing, no one can go against this. So if no one can go against it, why not be the instrument? Nimitta matra. So I hope that answers your question. Unfortunately, we haven't got any more time. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Oh glory to Lord. Radha Govardhana ki jai.